Hey, what is up, everybody? Platform Disciple here with another Weird Card Wednesday. And as per usual, we're looking at a very weird card. Today, we're looking at Evermind, which is an instant arcane printed in Saviors of Kamigawa as an uncommon. It has not been reprinted and probably won't be ever, to be honest. So let's begin with the elephant in the room, which is Evermind has no mana cost. Pretty unusual. There aren't many cards without mana costs. And we'll come back to that as we go over the effects of the card. So right off the bat, it says in reminder text, spells without mana costs can't be played. Then it says draw card. Then it says Evermind is blue. And then it says splice onto arcane, one colorless and one blue. With reminder text, as you play an arcane spell, you may reveal this card from your hand and pay its splice cost. If you do, add this card's effects to that spell. And there's really a lot to unpack here as far as weird cards go. So let's begin by going over the errata text, which is going to help us kind of go over these things in an orderly way. To begin with, the reminder text at the top of the card has been changed to non-existent mana cost can't be paid, which is slightly different than spells without mana costs can't be played for a number of reasons. First of all, it's played is not really a term that gets used anymore. We use cast, and notably, Evermind can be cast. It just cannot be paid for. So that means that you can cast the card if you have something that is going to allow you to bypass the mana cost, because it has no mana cost, so you cannot pay for it the way that you would pay for a normal card. Usually when you cast a spell, you declare that you're casting it and then pay for its mana cost. Evermind, there's no mana cost to pay, so you just cannot play it. It's not a zero mana card, it is a no cost card that cannot be paid for. But if you use something like Cascade as an effect, like on Shardless Agent, Cascade reads, when you cast this spell, exile the top cards of your library until you exile a non-land card that costs less. So Cascade looks at converted mana cost. Evermind has a converted mana cost of 0, even though it has no mana cost. And then Cascade lets you cast that card without paying its mana cost, which bypasses Evermind's lack of a mana cost. This is quite significant for another card that has no mana cost, which is Living End, which is brewed a lot of modern builds around it that use Cascade to cheat Living End out and bypass the suspend mechanic, which is the intended way for the card to be cast. So instead, you Cascade into it and get this colossal graveyard flopping effect. Now, Evermind, because its effect is just draw a card, is not really worth building a deck that has Cascade mechanics in it to take advantage of it. So doesn't have much going for it there, but let's move on. So the errata text has removed the line Evermind is blue, and instead it has a color indicator that has it as a blue card, which is kind of bizarre because it's not something that is indicated in any way, because there's no new artwork that has that color indicator. It's just something that is a fact of the card, I guess. So anyways, color indicators, the way they work is they are a little circle that tells you what color the card is by being the color that the card is. It's not really that useful of a tool because, I mean, usually the card has got a color anyways, but the color indicator means that the card is that color regardless of what zone it's in. It's just a fact of the card. However, there is a good reason behind this change and it not having that text, which is that there are cards that interact with color words. For example, Sleight of Mind allows you to change the text of target spell or permanent by replacing all instances of one color word with another. So in the case of Evermind, if it had its original text, you could use Sleight of Mind to change the text Evermind is blue to Evermind is red, or something similar to that. Not really like a game-breaking problem, but there is a functional difference between the card having written on it it is blue and the card being blue by virtue of a color indicator. And then last we have Splice onto Arcane, which the original text does a pretty good job of making it clear what it does, but the errata text is slightly updated. It says, as you cast an arcane spell, you may reveal this card from your hand and pay its Splice cost. If you do, add this card's effect to that spell. The only change that's really big there is that it says cast instead of play for the arcane spell. And let's go over Splice a little bit. So first of all, Splice is a mechanic that originated in Kamigawa and only applied to Arcane, which was really one of the biggest things that made Arcane special, is that Arcanes could be kind of glued to other Arcanes. But very recently in Modern Horizons, they brought back the Splice mechanic without its attachment to Arcanes. So here's a great example is Everdream, which is a obvious reference to the card Evermind. Everdream is not quite as interesting because it has a mana cost, it doesn't have the color indicator thing, but anyways, it has Splice onto instant or sorcery as opposed to Splice onto Arcane, which basically is the nail in the coffin for Evermind ever getting a reprint, because it means that if Wizards wants to bring back the Splice mechanic, they don't have any reason to hold on to this Arcane theme, which ultimately doesn't really have many applications at all. So the Splice mechanic, let's go over how it works. When you have a card that you cast that can be spliced onto, so we're going to use Lava Spike as an example because it's one of the few arcanes that actually gets played anywhere, which reminds me that one of the big reasons that Splice on the Arcane is such a failed mechanic is because Arcanes just overwhelmingly were bad cards, whereas the new Splice mechanic, Splice onto Instant or Sorcery, might have a little hope of seeing the light of day. But anyways, let's talk about Lava Spike. When you splice a card onto Lava Spike, you reveal it from your hand, and then the effect is just added to Lava Spike. So Lava Spike basically has that text glued into it, which means that if Lava Spike gets countered, both effects get countered. Likewise, if Lava Spike gets copied, it copies the Splice effects as well. Kind of interesting, not really any good way to take advantage of it. I will also bring up that you can only splice a card onto another card once, so you cannot splice Evermind 2 times onto the same card unless you have 2 separate copies of Evermind. I will also mention that if you splice more than 1 card onto the same card, because you can do that if you have enough mana and you have enough spliceable cards in your hand, the order that you do this is basically you reveal all of those cards at the same time and pay for their costs at the same time, and at that point you announce the order you would like those effects to resolve in. When the card actually does resolve, it resolves the original card effect first, and then it resolves the spliced effects in the order that you chose. I will also point out that if the splice effects have targets, or if the original spell has targets, if all of the targets are invalid by the time the spell comes time to resolve, the spell will fizzle, just like any other spell would fizzle if its targets were made invalid. So that's certainly relevant, especially if the spell has only 1 target. Like, for example, Lava Spike, if you're targeting a player that becomes hexproof through some means, then not only is the 3 damage countered, the Evermind effect is also countered. Now, I'm trying to think. I think that just about might cover it for these cards. I guess specifically Evermind, but Everdream is getting kind of an honorable mention there. I think that one thing that I may have forgot to mention, but it's pretty intuitive, I think, is that if the spell gets countered, the spliced cards stay in your hand, so no reason to worry about that. But yeah, that covers it. Evermind, very unusual card, not really any applications. I've kind of checked, so one problem is that it only does arcanes. The effect is so small. It's not even a card that you can take advantage of casually, but it's worth just talking about because of how bizarre it is. Everdream has maybe some hope, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Okay, so that just about covers it. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I wanted to quickly apologize because it seems like a lot of my Weird Card Wednesdays are actually turning into something like 3 a.m. on Thursday videos instead. But at least I've got the video out for you to watch, and as per usual, I do have a card altar giveaway. This is one I did a very long time ago. It's a Wobbuffet on a mountain. Wobbuffet is a Pokemon for those of you who are unfamiliar with the character, but it has actually nothing to do with the mountain that it's on. It was a very odd choice, but I did it because at the time I wanted to just try doing a simple looking cartoony character on a card, and I picked a sort of random card as opposed to one that actually related to Wobbuffet at all. So hopefully someone will want this, and if you are that someone, there will be a link in the description, as per usual, for that giveaway. And thank you very much for watching, everybody. Peace out and enjoy your day.